Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character. It's been a few days since Emma's embarrassing blind date incident, and she hasn't been able to shake the memory of Liam's face. She had never imagined that a simple mix-up at a restaurant would leave such a lasting impression. The next morning, as Emma was serving coffee at the diner, her mind kept drifting back to that night. She couldn't stop thinking about the way Liam had looked at her, as if he saw something real in her that no one else had before. Was she crazy for feeling this way? Was he just being polite? It was hard to know, but one thing was for sure. She couldn't forget him. As she walked out of the diner after her shift, a familiar voice called her name, pulling her out of her thoughts. Emma. She turned to see Liam standing there, looking as polished as ever, but with an air of hesitation in his eyes. He wasn't wearing a suit this time, just a simple gray hoodie and jeans, yet he still managed to look effortlessly put together. Her heart skipped a beat. Liam? She asked, unable to hide the surprise in her voice. He smiled softly, that same quiet smile that had left her feeling flustered just a few days ago. I know this is going to sound strange, but I've been thinking about our conversation. Emma's stomach twisted nervously, but she managed a weak smile. Oh, really? That was awkward. It wasn't awkward, Liam said quickly, his voice reassuring. Actually, I found it refreshing. And, well, I think I owe you an apology. I should have told you right away who I was. But I didn't, and I've been feeling guilty about it ever since. Emma blinked in confusion. Who you are? Liam took a deep breath, as if he was about to reveal something important. I'm Liam Parker, CEO of Parker Industries. I wasn't being entirely honest with you. I know I should have introduced myself properly, but I wanted to see who you really were before dropping the millionaire bomb on you. Emma froze. CEO? Millionaire? Her mind raced, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. Wait, you're Liam Parker? The CEO of Parker Industries. She felt her face heat up, the embarrassment from their previous meeting rushing back. I didn't mean to. Liam raised a hand, cutting her off. You don't have to apologize. Honestly, I was the one who should have said something sooner. I've been watching you, Emma, and I'm really impressed with your passion and drive. That's why I want to offer you a job. Emma's mouth went dry. A job? From him? What kind of job? She asked, still trying to process what was happening. Liam smiled again, the warmth in his expression undeniable. I think you'd be perfect for a position with my company. We're looking for someone with a creative mind, someone who thinks outside the box. I believe you have what it takes. What do you say? Emma's mind spun. A job with Parker Industries? It sounded too good to be true. She had always dreamed of finding a way out of the cycle of struggling and surviving. But this was beyond anything she could have imagined. I don't know, she stammered. I don't have any experience in that field. I'm just a waitress. Liam's expression softened, and he stepped a little closer, his voice low and reassuring. You don't need experience. What I see in you is potential. I want to help you grow, to take you to places you never thought possible. You deserve more than just getting by. I believe in you, Emma. His words were like a light shining through the darkness, a beacon of hope in her otherwise uncertain life. Emma looked at him, unsure whether to believe what he was offering, but there was something in his eyes that made her want to trust him. Could she really take this chance? Could she trust him, and herself, enough to change the course of her life? She took a deep breath, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Okay, she said, her voice steady despite the racing thoughts in her head. I'll take the chance. I'll work for you. Liam's face broke into a genuine smile, the kind of smile that made Emma feel like maybe, just maybe, she was making the right choice. You won't regret it, Emma, he said, his tone filled with sincerity. I promise. As he walked away, Emma stood there for a moment, trying to absorb the enormity of what had just happened. A job with Parker Industries. A chance to finally make something of herself. But as much as she felt excited, a small voice inside her wondered if this was just another case of being swept up in something she didn't fully understand. Was this just another dream that was too good to be true? She shook her head, pushing the doubt aside. She had made her choice. Now it was time to make it count. It's been a week since Emma accepted the job offer from Liam Parker, and the reality of it still hadn't fully sunk in. Her life had changed overnight. No longer was she just the waitress working at a small diner, struggling to make ends meet. Now, she was part of something bigger, something that could help her achieve everything she had ever dreamed of. But the transition wasn't as easy as she had imagined. On her first day at Parker Industries, Emma felt like a fish out of water. The sleek, modern office was far from the familiar, cozy setting of her diner. It was cold, polished, and intimidating. As she walked in, the air smelled of expensive coffee and the hum of busy workers at their desks. She felt the eyes of her new colleagues on her, whispering about the girl who had no business being there. But Liam had promised her that she belonged, and she was determined to prove it. The first meeting she attended was held in a large conference room, with Liam at the head of the table, looking every bit the powerful CEO that he was. Emma sat in the back, doing her best to look confident, though her nerves were on edge. She had no idea what they were talking about, most of the jargon flying over her head. But she knew one thing. Liam had believed in her. He had chosen her for a reason. As the meeting went on, Emma kept her eyes on him. There was something about the way he carried himself, calm, collected, and commanding, that made her want to learn from him. He was more than just a businessman. There was a depth to him that she hadn't fully understood yet. After the meeting, Liam walked up to her with that same warm, reassuring smile. "You did great in there," he said, his voice low but sincere. "I know it's a lot to take in, but you're doing just fine. You'll catch on quickly." Emma smiled weakly, still unsure of herself. "Thanks, Liam. I don't know if I'm cut out for this." He tilted his head slightly, his gaze softening. "You're here because you have potential. Don't doubt yourself. You're more capable than you realize." As the days went by, Emma continued to feel the weight of the expectations placed on her, both from Liam and herself. She worked late into the evenings, trying to catch up on everything she had missed in the world of business. But no matter how much effort she put in, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing catch-up. There were moments when she wanted to quit, when the pressure seemed too much to bear. But then Liam would pull her aside, reminding her of her strength, of the reason she was there. "You've got this," he would tell her, with that steady confidence that made her believe him, even when she wasn't so sure herself. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging day, Emma walked into the office to find a surprise waiting for her, a painting of a cityscape. It was a gift from Liam, though he hadn't said why. She stared at the painting, confused. It was beautiful, but what did it mean? As she turned to leave his office, Liam's voice stopped her. "I know you've been working hard, Emma. You've come a long way since we first met. I wanted to give you this as a reminder of what you're capable of. You're more than just a waitress. You're someone who can make a real impact." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she stared at the painting. For the first time in her life, someone believed in her, really believed in her. And it wasn't just because of the work she did. It was because of who she was. That night, as she sat alone in her small apartment, she looked at the painting again. The cityscape seemed to represent everything she had dreamed of: success, possibility, a future where she wasn't just surviving but thriving. But the thought of Liam kept creeping into her mind. She wasn't sure what it was about him, but there was something more than just gratitude for the opportunity he had given her. He had shown her kindness, genuine care, and patience. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized that maybe there was something more between them, something beyond the professional connection they had built. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to fall for him. The next day at work, as Liam walked past her desk, he paused and looked at her, as if he could sense what was on her mind. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice warm and attentive. Emma nodded quickly, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Yeah, just thinking." He raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing at the corner of his lips. "About what?" "About the future," Emma replied, her voice soft. "About how far I've come, and where I want to go." Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, they just stood there in silence. the weight of their shared connection hanging in the air. Finally, Liam spoke again, his tone serious yet comforting. "Whatever you choose, Emma, I'll be here to help you get there." She looked at him, unsure of what to say, but somehow knowing that her life was about to take a turn she never could have predicted. It had been a few weeks since Emma had started working at Parker Industries, and while the initial shock of her new life had worn off, the challenges hadn't. She was learning quickly, but still felt like she was treading water, trying to keep up with everything. Every day, she faced new obstacles, meetings with high-powered clients, office politics, and a workload that seemed to never end. Yet, every time she felt overwhelmed, she would remember Liam's words. "You've got this." They kept her going. Even when self-doubt crept in. One evening, after an especially difficult day, she was sitting at her desk, staring at a proposal she had been working on for hours. The numbers were blurring together, and her mind was exhausted. Just as she was about to give up for the night, a soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," Emma said, her voice tired but welcoming. Liam walked in, his presence as commanding as ever, but there was something different in his eyes tonight. He didn't have the usual air of business about him. Instead, he seemed concerned. "Emma," he said, his voice softer than usual, "how's everything going?" Emma gave him a tired smile. "Just trying to keep up. A lot on my plate." He nodded, walking further into her office and taking a seat across from her. "You know," Liam said, leaning forward slightly, "I've been watching you, and I can see that you're pushing yourself. But you don't have to do this alone." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had never been one to ask for help, always thinking she had to prove herself on her own. But here he was, offering her support, not just as her boss, but as someone who genuinely cared about her well-being. "I'm fine," she said quickly, brushing off his concern. But he didn't let her off that easily. "Emma," he said, his tone firm but gentle, "it's okay to lean on others. You don't have to carry all of this by yourself." She met his gaze, surprised by the depth of sincerity in his eyes. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before, the side that wasn't just a CEO, but a person who cared about those around him. For the first time, Emma felt like she wasn't just another employee in his company. She was someone he believed in. "Thank you, Liam," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that. Liam smiled, the warmth in his expression comforting her more than words could say. "Don't mention it. You're doing great, Emma. Keep pushing, but don't forget to take care of yourself too." After he left, Emma sat in her office, her thoughts swirling. She had been so focused on proving herself, on showing that she was capable, that she hadn't stopped to think about the toll it was taking on her. But now, with Liam's words echoing in her mind, she realized something important. She didn't have to do it all alone. She had a team, and Liam was more than just her boss. He was a mentor, someone who had seen potential in her when she hadn't even seen it in herself. The next few days were a blur of activity. Emma threw herself into her work, but with a new perspective. She reached out to her colleagues when she needed help, asked for guidance when she was unsure, and slowly, she began to feel more at home at Parker Industries. And then, one afternoon, Liam asked her to accompany him to a charity gala he was hosting. It wasn't something she had expected, but the invitation left her feeling both excited and nervous. A gala? With Liam? She wasn't sure what to expect, but she had a feeling that the night would be different from anything she had ever experienced. The event was nothing like the small charity events Emma had been used to. It was grand, elegant, and full of powerful people from all walks of life. Emma had never felt so out of place and so fascinated at the same time. She tried to blend in, sticking to the edges of the room, but as the night went on, she found herself drawn into conversations, some about art, some about business, and some just about life. Liam moved through the room with ease, greeting people, making connections, all while keeping an eye on her. Whenever she felt like she was starting to sink into the background, he would appear, offering her a reassuring smile or a few words of encouragement. And as the night wore on, Emma realized something. She wasn't just there as an employee or a plus one. She was someone Liam genuinely wanted by his side, someone he valued. When the evening came to a close and the guests began to leave, Liam walked over to her with that familiar, easy smile. "You did great tonight," he said, his voice warm and sincere. Emma couldn't help but smile back, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't expected. "Thanks, Liam. I was so nervous, but I guess I made it through." "You did more than make it through," he said, his eyes softening. "You belong here, Emma. Don't forget that." In that moment, she realized that the more time she spent with Liam, the more she was beginning to see him in a new light, not just as her boss, but as someone who was starting to mean something more to her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. The days following the gala passed in a blur, with Emma settling into her new role at Parker Industries more comfortably each day. She felt more confident in her abilities and had even begun to make suggestions during meetings, something she never would have done just a few weeks ago. But it wasn't just her professional growth that was shifting. Something about her connection with Liam had begun to change, subtly yet undeniably. It was hard to pinpoint exactly when it happened, but Emma found herself thinking about him more and more. Every time they talked, every time he smiled at her with that warmth that seemed so genuine, she felt a flutter in her chest. She had tried to dismiss it, telling herself that he was just her boss and that she was reading too much into things. But it was getting harder to ignore. One afternoon, Liam called her into his office to discuss an upcoming project. She walked in, expecting to dive into work, but there was something different in the air. Liam was sitting at his desk, but he wasn't looking at the proposal he had in front of him. Instead, his gaze was focused on her, as though he was studying her. Emma felt a wave of nervousness wash over her, and she shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "Emma," he said, his voice low and steady, "I need to ask you something." Her heart skipped a beat. "Of course, what is it?" she asked, trying to keep her tone even. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes locking onto hers. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately," he began, his voice surprisingly vulnerable. "About how much you've grown since you've been here. I see something in you, something more than just potential. And I want to know if you feel the same way." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had been preparing herself for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to say. Her mind raced, but all she could focus on was the way he was looking at her, so earnestly, so differently. Was he confessing something? Was he saying that he felt the same way? She opened her mouth to speak, but found that the words wouldn't come out. Instead, she found herself stepping closer to him, drawn by something she didn't fully understand. "Liam," she whispered, I don't know." She stopped herself, not wanting to rush into anything but unable to deny the pull she felt toward him. "I've always been cautious, you know," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I've always believed in proving myself on my own, without needing anyone's help. But with you," she paused, trying to find the right words. "With you, I feel like I don't have to do everything alone. You make me want to be better." Liam's expression softened, and he reached out, his hand gently touching hers. "Emma, you don't have to do anything alone. I'm here for you. Whatever you decide, I'm here, and I always will be." His words hit her like a wave, the weight of them sinking deep into her heart. She didn't know what this feeling was, but she knew that she wasn't ready to let it go. Slowly, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel it too," she admitted, her heart pounding in her chest. Liam smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made her feel as though the world had shifted on its axis. "Then let's take this one step at a time," he said, his voice warm with affection. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, the air thick with unspoken words. Emma's mind was still racing, but somehow, in that moment, everything felt right. It wasn't just the job or the success she had gained at Parker Industries. It was the possibility of something more, of a future she had never allowed herself to imagine. As they parted ways that evening, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam's words. There was a part of her that was still scared, still unsure, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that this was the beginning of something real. Something she had never expected, but something she had always needed. The next day, as Emma walked into the office, she felt different. She wasn't just walking into work, she was walking into a new chapter of her life. And she wasn't alone. No matter what happened, she knew that Liam would be there with her, supporting her, and maybe, just maybe, something more would come of this. She didn't know where this journey would take them, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was on the right path. The days that followed were a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Emma had never been one to let her emotions get in the way of her work, but now, After the moment she and Liam had shared, she found herself more distracted than usual. Each time he passed by her desk or their eyes met across the room, she felt a spark, something deeper than just the professional connection they had built. But they both knew the lines were blurry now. She could sense that Liam was holding back, just as she was. They hadn't talked about what happened after that day in his office, but the tension between them was undeniable. One afternoon, as the sun dipped lower into the sky, casting a warm glow over the office, Liam called her into his office again. Her heart raced as she walked in, unsure of what to expect this time. He was sitting at his desk, a stack of papers in front of him, but his gaze immediately lifted to meet hers, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade away. "Emma," he said, his voice calm, but there was a quiet intensity in it that made her feel like this conversation would change things. "I've been thinking." Her stomach flipped. "About what?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He motioned for her to sit, and she did, her hands resting nervously in her lap. "About us," Liam said, his eyes never leaving hers. "About what we're doing here, and where we're headed." Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was it. She knew they couldn't keep pretending like nothing had changed between them. She opened her mouth to speak, but Liam cut her off. "I don't want to rush things, but I also don't want to ignore what's happening between us." He paused, as if carefully choosing his words. "I know this isn't easy. I know we're both in new territory here, and I don't want to complicate things. But I can't ignore how I feel. About you. I can't pretend I don't care." Emma felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She had spent so much time guarding her heart, telling herself that she didn't need anyone to complete her. But with Liam, it was different. She had never imagined someone like him, someone so powerful, so driven, could look at her the way he did, could want her. "I feel the same way," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know if I'm ready for this. For whatever this is." There was a pause, a moment of silence where neither of them spoke. Then Liam stood up and walked around his desk, stopping in front of her. He knelt down, placing a hand gently on hers. "You don't have to be ready right now," he said softly. "I'm not asking you to make any big decisions. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I want to take this slowly. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready." Emma looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat. She had never expected to be here, in this moment with him. But now that she realized how much she had wanted this, even if she hadn't been brave enough to admit it before. She nodded slowly, her heart racing. "Okay," she said, her voice steady now. "Let's take it slow." Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with relief and something else, something warmer, more personal. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I promise I'll be patient. I just want to see where this goes." As Emma left his office that evening, she felt a mix of emotions, relief, excitement, and a bit of fear. But most of all, she felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. They had finally acknowledged what had been growing between them, and that alone made her feel lighter. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. Whatever came their way, they would face it together. The next few weeks were a delicate dance, taking things slow, enjoying their time together without rushing ahead. They shared quiet dinners, long walks around the city, and moments of laughter that made Emma feel like she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of. It wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she needed to be, with Liam. As they walked home together one evening, their hands brushed, and she felt the familiar spark again. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready to take the next step, even if it was just one small step at a time. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam continued to grow closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. They spent their time outside of work getting to know each other better, sharing stories, laughing over dinner, and enjoying the quiet moments that made everything feel more real. Emma had started to feel at home in the world Liam had introduced her to, and with each step, she realized that maybe she had been wrong all along about never needing anyone. Liam had become more than just her boss. He had become her support, her confidant, and, in many ways, her partner. But despite the deepening connection between them, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she wasn't seeing. Liam was always so composed, so in control, but Emma began to notice small things, moments when he seemed distant, a flicker of sadness in his eyes that he quickly masked with a smile. She couldn't quite place it, but something was off. One evening, after a long day at the office, they found themselves alone at a quiet cafe. The soft hum of conversation around them seemed to fade as Liam stared into his cup of coffee, his fingers tracing the rim absently. Emma watched him closely, the concern bubbling inside her. "Liam, is everything okay?" she asked gently, her voice filled with care. He looked up at her, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, everything's fine," he replied, but his voice lacked its usual warmth. Emma wasn't convinced. She had come to know him well enough to recognize when something was bothering him. She reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "You don't have to pretend with me," she said softly. "I can tell something's on your mind." Liam let out a quiet sigh, his gaze dropping to their intertwined hands. "It's just work, you know? There's always something. But it's nothing I can't handle," he said, though his words didn't sound convincing. Emma's heart ached seeing him like this. She knew he was used to carrying the weight of his responsibilities alone, but she wanted to be there for him, to show him that he didn't have to shoulder everything by himself. "You don't have to do it alone, Liam," she said, her voice steady and firm. "You've always been there for me. Let me be here for you too." For a moment, there was silence between them, and Emma wondered if she had said too much. But then Liam looked up, meeting her gaze with an intensity she hadn't seen before. "I'm not used to relying on anyone," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "I've spent so many years building this empire, this life. It's hard to let anyone in, even you." Emma squeezed his hand gently, her heart pounding in her chest. "You don't have to be alone in this," she whispered, her eyes softening. "We're a team, Liam. Let me be part of this with you." Liam took a deep breath, his eyes closing for a brief moment as if weighing her words. When he opened them again, the guard around him seemed to slip away just a little. "I've never told anyone this, but sometimes I wonder if I've sacrificed too much for this business, for the success. I've lost touch with people, with what really matters." Emma's chest tightened at his confession. She had always known that Liam was driven by his work, but hearing him admit that he questioned his choices made her see him in a new light. He wasn't just the powerful CEO. He was a man who had doubts, just like anyone else. "You're not alone in this, Liam," she said, her voice full of empathy. "Success isn't everything. What matters is the people you choose to be with, the connections you make. You've got me, and you've got more than just a business. You've got a life to live." Liam's expression softened, and for the first time in a while, Emma saw the weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Emma," he said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you." There was a long pause, the air between them charged with emotion. And then, almost instinctively, they leaned in, their lips meeting in a soft, tender kiss. It wasn't passionate or urgent, it was a promise that they would face whatever came their way, together. As they pulled apart, Emma smiled, her heart swelling with a newfound sense of certainty. She didn't have all the answers, and neither did Liam, but for the first time, she felt that they didn't need to. They had each other, and that was enough. The weeks after that evening felt like a turning point in Emma and Liam's relationship. Their bond had deepened, and for the first time in a long time, they both felt like they were on the same page. They were no longer just colleagues or employer and employee, they were partners. Not just in work, but in life. Liam's usual guarded nature began to soften around Emma. He had always been the man who kept his distance from others, but with her, he allowed himself to open up. She had become more than just a part of his team. She had become his confidant, his support. They began to spend more time together outside of work. Quiet nights in, walks around the city, and conversations that went deep into the night. Each moment felt like a discovery, a step closer to something neither of them had expected. But even as their connection grew stronger, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of their differences. She had always been independent, always pushed herself to prove her worth, and now, in this new chapter with Liam, she felt the pressure of that independence. Could she balance the life she had built for herself with the life she was now sharing with him? One evening, as they sat on the couch after dinner, Emma's mind wandered to the future. She looked over at Liam, who was busy scrolling through some papers for an upcoming meeting. He glanced up, sensing her shift in mood. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice soft but attentive. Emma hesitated before speaking, unsure if she was ready to voice her concerns. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "About where we're headed, and about what this all means." Liam put the papers down, giving her his full attention. He could tell something was bothering her, and he wanted to hear her thoughts. "I know things have been moving fast," he said, his voice reassuring. "But you don't have to worry. I'm not going anywhere, Emma." His words gave her a sense of comfort, but there was still something on her mind. "It's not that," she said, shaking her head. "It's just, I've built this life for myself. And now, I feel like I'm becoming part of your world. I don't want to lose myself in all of this, in us." Liam's expression softened as he listened to her. He understood the fear she was feeling, the fear of losing who she was in the process of building something new. "Emma, you won't lose yourself," he said gently. "This is your life, too. You're not just a part of my world. You're building your own world alongside mine. I'm here to support you in whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go. We'll figure this out together." Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders at his words. She had been so focused on the idea of merging their lives. She had forgotten that they could build something together without sacrificing what they both wanted individually. She smiled, the tension in her body easing. "Thank you," she whispered, grateful for the reassurance. "I just needed to hear that." Liam reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "I'll always be here for you, Emma," he said with conviction. "We're in this together." In that moment, Emma realized that she didn't need to have everything figured out. They didn't need to know exactly where they were headed. What mattered was that they were moving forward, side by side. The future was uncertain, but with Liam by her side, Emma knew she could face whatever came their way. The next day, as they walked into the office together, their hands brushed once more, and the unspoken connection between them was stronger than ever. Emma had always believed in the importance of independence, but now she knew that she didn't have to navigate life alone. With Liam, she had found something that went beyond just success or ambition. She had found someone who truly understood her, who valued her for who she was, and who was willing to support her dreams. As they stood there, side by side, Emma couldn't help but smile. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it, with him. As the days passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow in ways they hadn't expected. The bond between them was stronger than ever, built not just on attraction, but on trust and mutual respect. They had both been through their own struggles, but now, they were facing the future together, side by side. Emma's confidence at work soared. She was no longer the girl who doubted herself, unsure of her place in the world. She had found her rhythm at Parker Industries, and more importantly, she had found a partner in Liam who encouraged her to follow her dreams. There were still challenges ahead, of course, business deals to close, long hours at the office, and obstacles that came with being in a relationship with someone as powerful as Liam. But Emma no longer felt like she was alone in it. Every day, Liam showed her just how much he cared, and in return, Emma was ready to support him in every way she could. One evening, as they were walking through the city after a late meeting, Liam stopped and turned to face her, a look of quiet determination in his eyes. "Emma," he said, his voice serious but full of warmth, "I've been thinking a lot about our future, about everything we've built together so far." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "I have, too," she replied, her voice steady. "And what we've built means a lot to me, more than I ever thought possible." Liam reached out, gently taking her hands in his. "I know I've always been focused on work, on building my empire. But now, with you, I realize that there's so much more to life. You've opened my eyes to what really matters. It's not just about success or achievements. It's about the people we care about, the life we're creating together." Emma's heart swelled as she looked up at him. She had always believed in the power of hard work, in the importance of achieving something on her own. But with Liam, she had learned that success wasn't just about personal accomplishments. It was about sharing the journey with someone who understood and cared for you. "Liam, I don't need anything from you," Emma said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "I've built my own life, my own career. But having you by my side, it's everything. You make me feel like I can do anything." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that made her feel like the world was right. "You can do anything, Emma. And I'll be here, every step of the way, supporting you, no matter what." Their hands remained intertwined as they stood there, the city lights shining around them, but it felt like the rest of the world had faded away. In that moment, Emma realized just how far she had come. She had once been a girl afraid of losing herself, afraid of needing anyone. But now, with Liam, she had found something even more precious, someone who believed in her, who encouraged her, and most importantly, someone who made her feel whole. As they walked back to their apartment, Emma couldn't help but smile. The future wasn't certain, but it was theirs to shape together. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she was ready to face them with Liam by her side. They had built something real, something worth fighting for. And in that moment, Emma knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, because they were no longer just two people living separate lives. They were a team, and they always would be.